The parshah of Tetzaveh, Tetzaveh, continues with detailed instructions of how the Mishkan, the tabernacle, should be constructed. Continues explaining about the construction of its vessels. And specifically in Tetzaveh, we have a very interesting, very graphic and beautiful description of the garments that were worn by the Kohanim, the priests. And specifically, there are a series of garments worn by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, throughout the year, although on Yom Kippur there is a different set of garments. And we're going to talk about that as well. And we're going to see in the discussion about one of the garments in particular, how the inner meanings of the Torah penetrate all the verses, and specifically we will even see a debate between two great rabbis or two great commentators, Rashi and Nachmanides, and how even this discussion also reflects a philosophical difference. So in our discussion, I'm going to focus on the robe, the ephod. The verse says in chapter 28, verses 31 to 35, "And you shall make the robe of the priest completely of blue wool, and make on its hem, the bottom, in Slovak podolka, pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet wool, and bells of gold," and here I will translate advisedly, "amongst them." Therein lies a interpretive discussion, either between the bells are either between the pomegranates or within the pomegranates. "And this robe shall be upon Aharon, the high priest, when he serves. And its sound shall be heard when he enters into the holy before God." The holy being the first of two chambers used exclusively for divine service, such as offerings, incense, and so on. The first chamber being the holy, the second one being the holy of holies. That inner sanctum, the holy of holies, is entered only on Yom Kippur, only by the high priest as well. But before that, there's the holy that is used throughout the year. And when he enters the holy, the sound of the bells on the hem of the robe, which is called the ephod, will be heard. It's a very interesting idea. On the one hand, we may be tempted to think that the bells are another ornament, but the verse explaining that they actually will be heard when he enters the holy brings into our discussion a very interesting concept, the concept of sound. It's not singing, it's not speech, it's sound, it's noise. And so in a sense, the clothing of the high priest becomes multimedia. It's not only appearance, it's also something which, in a sense, heralds his arrival into the holy when he comes for the service. Now, what Rashi says is that the hem, the very lowest part of the robe, has these adornments. It says in the Torah, rimon. Rimon is a pomegranate. If you permit, I'll translate some of the expressions into Slovak for those who are Slovak speakers to make it more clear. granato v'yablko. And the verse specifically says rimon v'pa'amon, a pomegranate and a bell. And what is not absolutely clear is the bell inside the pomegranate, or is it in between the pomegranates? And what comes out of the commentary of Rashi, the commentator par excellence of the simple meaning of the verses, is that the pomegranates were in fact hollow, and yet Rashi then states that the simple sense of the verse is that the bells are in between the pomegranates. To this assumption, a later 14th century commentator, the great Spanish commentator Nachmanides, referred to in Hebrew as the Ramban, says that he doesn't understand this. Why are the pomegranates hollow on the inside? This would make sense if the bells are inside the pomegranate. But if the bells are in between the pomegranates, then it would make sense for this adornment of the pomegranate not to be hollow, first of all. And second of all, from the Ramban's point of view, if the bells are not inside the pomegranate, meaning that the pomegranate is like part of the bell, so the pomegranate serves no function, and it is therefore only for decoration. And to this, Nachmanides makes a curious comment. He says, well, if it's only for beauty, why a pomegranate? Should it not have been an apple? One of the later commentaries, because the seminal commentary of Rashi had many, many other great scholars who tried to decipher and explain in greater detail the thought process and commentary of Rashi. One of the most famous, by the way, was written by the Maharal of Prague, and it's called the Gur Aryeh. It's an explanation of Rashi's comment on the 5 books of Moses. But there's another one called the Eliyahu Mizrahi, and he right away wonders, if you assume that these pomegranates are meant for decoration and not part of the bell, but why an apple? There does seem to be an answer indicating that apple would be a classic decoration, because in the menorah, the branches of the menorah were also adorned, and they had various things, almond-shaped, some things were cup-shaped. Gevia was a cup-shaped adornment, and there was something called kaftog, which in modern Hebrew would be translated as a button. And Rashi says it's actually, this is an apple-shaped adornment, and something which was apparently not uncommon. And hence, the one adornment we find, already it was in last week's parshah, on the menorah, the candelabra, was apple-shaped. And so, hence, Nachmanides' thinking perhaps would be that another similar fruit adornment would match that. But as we're going to see, there's a very profound symbolic significance in what the difference between an apple and a pomegranate is.